Faith is the basis. It's the foundation of our relationship with the Lord. And it unlocks our understanding of all these promises He's given us. It's the catalyst required to receive His blessings. But we hate to admit it, but the reality is all of us struggle from time to time for various reasons, whether it's disappointment, circumstances, whatever. There are moments when each one of us, when our faith just isn't what we need it to be. So today, we're looking at God's unmerited favor. Whether we call it faith or trust, belief, however we want to word it, it is the critical component in our even having a relationship with the Lord. And for us to live a God-powered life, not to settle for second best and mundane, not to just drift through life, but rather for you and I to be all He has called us to be, for us to do all He's ordained for us to do. It requires not just faith, but an increasing degree of faith and trust in Him. That's maturity. But the reality is, the little secret is, all of us have moments where for whatever reason, whether it's disappointment, hurt, actually the reason doesn't matter. There are moments when all of us find ourselves in that position where our faith just isn't strong enough, when our faith is weak. And as we'll see in this story, what can be more frustrating is when it seems like that faith is coming so much easier to others. Today, we're looking at God's grace, His unmerited favor. Now, what I hope you'll see from this is grace, His unmerited favor, is not a pass on faith, but rather it's the extraordinary efforts, the lengths God will go to prove to you and I that He is trustworthy, to encourage our faith. So today we're looking at doubting Thomas, and hopefully we'll see this story in a little bit different light. Now, you can look at this for yourself. It's in John chapter 20, verses 24 to 29. But prior to that, see, Jesus went to the cross. The disciples are devastated. Their beliefs, their expectations were wiped out. This did not work the way they thought it would. So they are full of hurt and disappointment. Now, just prior to this, the rest of the disciples were together, but not Thomas. They were together. And in a locked room, Jesus appeared to them and He gave them some very interesting instructions, which I encourage you to look for yourself. Starting at verses 22 and 23, what He says to them. But later, the disciples are with Thomas. Now, Thomas, as you know, again, he wasn't there. And now, whether this is hurt speaking or disappointment, the reality is we say things that we don't necessarily mean. Now, whether he did or not, I don't know. But what happened? So the disciples are all excited because they've seen the Lord. But Thomas's response, sounds like a little bit of hurt, a little bit of bitterness here. And what does he say? I won't believe unless I see Him, unless I put my finger in that hole, unless I touch the wound, so to speak, unless I see and feel the evidence, I won't believe. Now, it's easy for us reading this story all these years later to be incredulous. How could you not believe? This is Jesus. But the reality is we all have those moments when, whether it's a dream that's delayed, it's a hurt, it's a disappointment, whatever, for whatever reason, we do have those moments when our faith comes up short. And whether we verbalize it or not, our feelings are very similar. Unless I have more evidence, I just can't believe. But this is God's unmerited favor. This is the extent. So what happens? What does Jesus do? Now, again, they are in a locked room together. This is God's grace. This is His love and His encouragement. So what happens? In spite of what kind of sounds like rejection on Thomas's part. And again, I really believe this just came out of hurt and disappointment. This is just that speaking, not his real spirit. But it doesn't matter because Jesus appears. And not only does he not rebuke him, does he not correct him, but he encourages him. And Jesus says to Thomas, come here, look, touch the wounds, touch the evidence for yourself. I want to prove it to you. Is basically what Jesus says. Let me prove to you the reality. Now, here's where this is exciting. So again, when our faith comes up weak, Jesus is not condemning us. He is encouraging us in every way possible. Just believe. We see the end of this story. Jesus leaves it with this amazing comment. And what he says to Thomas, you believed because you saw me. Blessed are those who believe who have not seen. Blessed are you and I that we believe and we haven't seen him. We will, but we haven't yet. Blessed are you and I that we haven't seen necessarily the fulfillment of all of his promises, but we will. Blessed are you and I that even in the hurts and disappointment of a fallen world, that our faith will continue to grow. Our trust in him will continue to grow and get deeper because that's the requirement. That's part of the maturity for him to entrust us with all that he has. As we grow in faith and trust, God is glorified. All that we do through faith glorifies him. And the blessings we receive are just the byproduct. It's not the point. It's about our relationship with him and him being glorified. See, God's grace, his unmerited favor, is not a free pass. It's not an exception where we don't need faith, but rather what we see is the efforts God will go to encourage you and I, to show us his love, to show us that he is faithful, and to encourage us to a greater degree of faith and trust. So, my encouragement to you and I, God, give us that greater faith. Let us trust you to a greater degree. Let us see you glorified, and let us become all that you have called us to be.